I still remember that quiet afternoon in my small apartment, the sun filtering through the lace curtains I'd sewn myself years ago. The chamomile tea steamed gently in my favorite mug, the one my late husband, Thomas, bought on our last trip together. At 65, widowed and retired, I'd found a rhythm in my days, tending the little potted herbs on the windowsill, reading letters from old students, and guarding my modest savings like a sacred promise. $80,000. Every penny earned from decades of teaching, every skipped vacation, every extra shift. It was my safety, my independence, my quiet pride. Then the door burst open without a knock. Sophia, my daughter-in-law, swept in like a storm in designer heels, her perfume sharp and expensive. She dropped a thick folder on my table, right over the photo album I'd been holding. Pictures of Ethan as a toddler, his gap-toothed grin beside my Thomas. My heart skipped, then sank. "You're going to give it all," she said, voice cold as steel. "Ethan's tuition at the private university, $50,000 a year. Your savings will cover it. It's time you showed how much you love him." I couldn't breathe. Ethan had just called me, voice trembling with joy, to say he'd won a full scholarship to the state's top public university. A full ride, no debt, a future built on his own merit. I'd cried happy tears into my pillow that night, whispering thanks to God and to Thomas, wherever he was watching. But Sophia didn't care about that. She didn't need my money. Her real estate empire bought her yachts and gala invitations. No, this wasn't about Ethan's education. This was about her image, about posting on social media. Grandma sacrificed everything for our boys' Ivy dreams, about forcing me to kneel so she could stand taller. My hands shook as I touched the savings book in my apron pocket, the paper worn soft from years of careful checking. "Sophia," I whispered, "he already has a scholarship, a full one. He earned it." She laughed, sharp, mocking. "A public school? For our family? You'd rather hoard your little nest egg than give Ethan the best? What kind of grandmother keeps money over her own grandson's future?" The words hit like slaps. Selfish, ungrateful, cold. I felt the old fear crawl up my spine. Loneliness, the kind that had swallowed me after Thomas died. What if they stopped visiting? What if Ethan, my sweet boy who still kissed my cheek and called me Gram, believed her? But beneath the fear, something stirred. A quiet fire I hadn't felt in years. I looked at the photo of Ethan, 18 now, tall and kind, with his father's eyes. And I knew this wasn't love Sophia was demanding. This was control. This was theft dressed as devotion. I closed the album gently, my voice steady for the first time. "Love isn't measured in tuition fees, Sophia." Her eyes narrowed. "Then you'll lose him, and us. Forever." The threat hung in the air like smoke. My chest ached with grief, but my resolve hardened. I'd given my life to this family, raised my son alone, welcomed Sophia, poured every spare dollar into Ethan's dreams. I would not let greed hollow out what was left of my dignity. But how do you fight someone who wields your love as a weapon? And what price would I pay to protect the boy I raised with bedtime stories and scraped knees? That day, a war began in my heart, one between surrender and defiance, between fear and faith. Little did Sophia know, I was about to teach her the true cost of a priceless sum. I sat there long after Sophia left, the folder of legal papers still on my table like a cold stone. My tea had gone bitter. The apartment, once my sanctuary, now felt smaller, the walls pressing in with every memory. I opened the savings book again. 80,043 cents. I used to laugh at that odd amount. Thomas had deposited the last paycheck before he passed, and the bank added the interest. "Our little joke with fate," he'd said. Now it felt like a countdown. Because of that visit, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Ethan's face, not the proud graduate, but the little boy who once cried when I sold my mother's ring to pay for his summer camp. "Don't give up your treasures for me, Graham," he'd sobbed. I'd promised him then, "I'll only give what keeps us whole." Then, 2 days later, Ethan came alone. He slipped in quietly. No Sophia, no announcement. His shoulders were hunched, eyes red. He hugged me so tight, I felt his heartbeat against my ribs. "Graham, I don't want the private school," he whispered into my hair. "I earned the scholarship. It's good enough. It's more than enough." I pulled back, searching his face. "Then why haven't you told your mother?" He looked down. "She says if I don't go, I'm throwing away our family's future. That I'll embarrass her. That you'll be disappointed in me." The lie twisted in my gut like a knife. Disappointed? In him? I'd marched in parent-teacher nights in the same dress for 10 years so he could have new shoes. I'd skipped meals when money was tight so he could join the science club. And now Sophia was using my love to break his spirit. I made him sit, poured milk into the chipped blue mug he'd painted for me in 3rd grade. "World's Best Graham" in wobbly letters. "Listen to me," I said, voice soft but firm. "Your mother wants a story to tell her friends, not a son with integrity. Don't let her steal your voice." He nodded, but fear still clouded his eyes. "She's already enrolled me, paid the deposit, said your money will cover the rest." My breath caught. Already? Without my consent? I felt the ground shift beneath me. This wasn't pressure anymore. This was theft. That night, I did something I hadn't done since Thomas died. I knelt by my bed, hands clasped over the old wooden rosary he'd carried in the war. Not to beg for strength, I had that, but to ask for clarity, show me how to protect him without losing myself. The next morning, I called Mr. Alvarez, my former student, now a quiet, honest lawyer who handled wills for teachers on fixed incomes. I didn't tell him everything, just enough. "I need to update my will," I said, "and set up a trust, quickly." He paused. "Mrs. Helen, are you in trouble?" "No," I lied gently. "Just preparing for peace." Because of that, I began a silent plan. I told Sophia I'd think about it, played the frail, confused widow. "I'm old," I said over the phone, voice trembling just enough. "I need time." She bought it, sent Ethan with flowers and a card. "We love you. Do this for us." But every night, I met Mr. Alvarez in his small office after hours. We drafted papers. Not for Sophia, for something bigger. I remembered the public university, how many kids like Ethan applied, but couldn't afford even with scholarships. Books, housing, lab fees, little things that crushed dreams. I named it the Autonomy Fund, a scholarship for students who earned their way but needed help to stay free. No strings, no prestige, just dignity. Then came the day Sophia demanded we go to the bank. "To transfer the funds," she said, smiling like a cat with cream. Ethan was there too, silent, eyes pleading. I wore my Sunday coat, the one Thomas loved, carried my savings book like a hymnal. At the counter, the teller opened the account. Balance, 0.0. Sophia's face went white. "What did you do?" I looked at her calmly. "I did what you asked. I gave everything." She grabbed my arm, hard. "Where is it?" I smiled, the first real smile in weeks. "Somewhere it can't be used to buy a lie." Ethan's eyes widened, not in fear, in wonder. Until finally, that evening, my phone rang. "Sophia, triumphant?" "Too late, Helen. I used the power of attorney you signed last year, paid the first semester. Now hand over the rest." I sat in my empty apartment, boxes half-packed for the smaller place I'd quietly rented. The savings book lay open on the table, blank, free. "I did sign papers," I said. But not for tuition. I told her about the donation, the apartment, the pension, every cent, legally, irrevocably, now fueling the autonomy fund. Dozens of students would get what Ethan already had, a chance without chains. You wanted me to prove my love with money, I said. I did. Now it helps others choose their own path. Like Ethan will. Silence. Then a scream. Then the line went dead. And now I wait. Not for anger. Not for revenge. But for the day Ethan walks through my new door. Smaller. Yes, but mine. And says, I enrolled where I belong, Graham. Thank you for teaching me what rich really means. The silence after Sophia's scream felt like the first breath after a long dive. My phone lay dark on the table. The screen cracked from when I'd dropped it months ago. Another small thing I'd never replaced. I didn't need to hear more. I'd heard enough in her voice, shock, then fury, then the hollow ring of someone who just realized the game board had flipped while she wasn't looking. Because of that call, I couldn't sit still. I walked the apartment one last time, touching the places that held my life. The kitchen counter, where Ethan used to stand on a stool to stir cookie dough. The living room wall with the faint pencil marks tracking his height, year after year, until he outgrew the doorway. The bedroom closet where Thomas's old coat still hung, smelling faintly of cedar and the pipe he'd given up for my lungs. I folded the coat gently, placed it in a box labeled Keep. Some things money can't measure. Then came the knock, soft, uncertain. Not Sophia, Ethan. He stood in the hallway light, backpack slung low, eyes swollen but clear. Graham, he whispered. Can I come in? I opened my arms. He dropped the bag and folded into me like he was 8 again. His tears soaked my shoulder. I told her, he said, voice muffled, everything. That I never wanted the private school. That I'm enrolling in the public university next week. That I'm proud of you. Pride. The word landed warm in my chest, melting the last shard of fear. I led him inside, sat him on the couch that sagged in the middle from decades of family weight. I poured water. No tea left. I'd given the tin to Mrs. Lopez next door yesterday. Simple things, shared. Tell me the truth, I said. Are you afraid? He nodded. She says I'm betraying the family, that without her connections, I'll be nothing, that you've ruined me. He looked up, eyes fierce. But Graham, you didn't ruin anything. You saved me. Because of that, we talked until the streetlights flickered on. Not about money, about choices, about the difference between a door held open and a gate locked from the outside. I told him how Thomas and I had lived on one teacher's salary, how we'd turned down promotions that would have moved us away from the neighborhood school where I taught. We chose enough, I said, and it gave us everything. Ethan pulled a folded paper from his pocket. His acceptance letter to the public university, the scholarship seal bright gold. I start orientation Monday, he said. I want to live on campus, but I'll visit every Sunday. I'll bring groceries. I'll cook. His voice cracked. I don't want you to be alone. I touched his cheek. I won't be, not anymore. Then he asked the question I dreaded and hoped for. What will you live on now? The apartment's gone. The savings? I smiled, the kind that starts in the eyes and settles in the bones. I kept a little, enough for a room in the senior cottages near the university library. I'll volunteer, tutor freshmen who struggle with essays, the way I tutored you. And the pension trickles in. I'll be fine. He frowned. But the fund, the autonomy fund, you gave them everything. Everything I didn't need to keep my dignity, I corrected. The fund will help students pay for textbooks, dorm deposits, bus passes, things that quietly crush dreams. Your scholarship covers tuition, but life costs more than that. Because of that, Ethan did something I'll carry forever. He opened his backpack, took out a small wooden box, hand-carved, rough edges. Inside lay $300 in 20s, wrinkled but neat. "From my summer job," he said. "I was saving for a laptop, but you need it more, for rent, for tea, for whatever comes." I tried to push it back. He closed my fingers over the bills. "Graham, you taught me love isn't keeping. It's giving when it hurts. Let me hurt a little too." Tears came then. Mine, his, mingling on the couch cushions. Not sad tears, cleansing ones. The kind that wash a wound so it can heal clean. Until finally we stood at the window, watching the moving truck pull away with my boxes. The apartment looked bare, but not empty. It looked ready for new paint, new voices, new beginnings. Ethan slipped his hand in mine. "Mom will calm down," he said. "Eventually. She always does when the audience leaves." I squeezed his fingers. "And if she doesn't?" He shrugged, a small, free motion. "Then we'll love her anyway, from a distance, with boundaries." And now I carry that moment like a smooth stone in my pocket. The day my grandson chose truth over comfort. The day I chose freedom over fear. The day love stopped being a chain and became wings. The senior cottage smelled of fresh paint and lemon polish when I moved in 3 days later. One room, one window, facing a courtyard of jacaranda trees, one hot plate, and a narrow bed with the quilt my mother pieced from Thomas's old shirts. I hung the world's best Graham mug on a hook by the sink. Ethan insisted I keep it. "For your new tea?" he said, and left a tin of chamomile on the counter like a promise. Because of that first night alone, doubt crept in with the dark. I sat on the edge of the bed, clutching the wooden box with Ethan's $300. The walls were thin. I could hear Mrs. Chen next door humming an old lullaby. My fingers traced the savings book, now just a relic. Pages blank. Had I been reckless? At 65, starting over with nothing but a volunteer badge and a pension stub? The fear tasted metallic, like blood from biting my lip too hard. Then my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Mrs. Helen, this is Maya from the University Scholarship Office. The Autonomy Fund just received its first anonymous match, $5,000. A student paid for another's lab fees. They said, 'Pass it on.' Thank you." I stared until the screen dimmed. One act, already rippling. The doubt loosened its grip. The next morning, I walked to campus, 20 minutes past blooming hedges and students with backpacks slung low. The scholarship office was tucked behind the library, a small room with sagging couches and a kettle that whistled like a cheerful bird. Maya, 20-something, with kind eyes and a hijab pinned with a tiny silver star, greeted me. "You're the founder," she said, not a question. "Ethan told us you'd come." She showed me the ledger. My donation, apartment sale, pension lump sum, every cent, had been seeded into a trust. Interest alone would cover 2 full life expense grants per semester. Already, 3 students had applied. A nursing major needing rent, an engineering freshman whose laptop died, a veteran paying for childcare so he could attend night classes. Their essays were pinned to a corkboard, handwritten, earnest, alive. Because of that corkboard, I stayed. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I tutored in the corner by the window. I helped Jamal rewrite his physics abstract until it sang. I sat with Rosa while she practiced her pharmacy oral exam, her baby asleep in a sling. I listened to Lee, the veteran, talk about desserts and daughters and second chances. They called me Miss Helen, never knowing the fund was mine. I liked it that way. Love, like teaching, works best when it forgets its own name. Then one Thursday, Ethan appeared at the door, hair damp from rain, holding 2 paper cups. "Chamomile for Graham," he grinned. He'd been on campus 3 weeks. Dorm life, cafeteria food, study groups that ran past midnight. His eyes were brighter, shoulders squared. He introduced me to his lab partner, Aisha, who shyly thanked me for the bus pass that let her commute from her aunt's house. "Without it, I'd have dropped chemistry," she said. Ethan beamed like I'd hung the moon. We walked the quad afterward, leaves crunching underfoot. "Mom called," he said quietly. "She's processing. Says the country club asked why I'm not at the private school. She told them food poisoning." He rolled his eyes. Baby steps. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. The sound startled a squirrel. Because of that laugh, Ethan stopped under a jacaranda. Purple petals drifted around us like slow confetti. "Graham, I want to add to the fund. Not much, my work-study pay. $50 a month. Can I?" I started to protest. "You need it for books, for life." But he cut me off. "You taught me wealth is what you free yourself from. Let me free a little, too." I nodded, throat tight. We stood there until the rain started again, soft and warm. He opened an umbrella he'd borrowed from the dorm, held it over both of us. "Sunday dinner?" he asked. "I'll bring groceries. You bring the mug." Until finally, that evening, I returned to my cottage. The $300 box now held $250, rent paid, tea bought, a new notebook for tutoring notes. I opened the notebook, wrote on the first page in my careful teacher script. Day 1. Doubt visited. Hope answered. Below it, I taped Maya's text printout. A seed, a match, a ripple. And now, every time I pass the corkboard, I see new essays, new names, new futures unfurling like petals. The cottage walls are thin, but they hold music. Mrs. Chen's lullabies, my kettle whistling, Ethan's knock every Sunday with grocery bags and stories. I am poorer in dollars, richer in everything that lasts. Sunday came with golden light and the smell of rain-washed earth. I woke early, pulled the quilt up to my chin, and listened to the quiet. No traffic noise, no Sophia's heels clicking on hardwood, just birds and the soft clink of Mrs. Chen's wind chime. I made my bed the way Thomas taught me. Hospital corners, blanket tucked tight, small rituals keep a heart steady. Because of that quiet, I decided to walk to the little market before Ethan arrived. The cottage path wound past flower beds, where old Mr. Patel grew tomatoes in painted buckets. He waved, offered me 2 ripe ones, still warm from the sun. "For your boy," he said. I slipped them into my canvas bag beside the chamomile tin and the world's best Graham mug wrapped in a tea towel. Simple treasures. At the market, I used 20 of Ethan's dollars. Bread still steaming, a wedge of sharp cheddar, apples that smelled like childhood orchards. The cashier, a girl with purple streaks in her braid, counted change slowly. "You're the tutor lady," she said suddenly. "Helped my cousin with her English comp. She passed." Her smile was quick, grateful. I felt the ripple again, my empty savings touching lives I'd never meet. Because of that smile, I walked home lighter. But halfway up the cottage steps, my phone rang. Sophia, my stomach knotted. I almost let it ring out. Then I pressed accept, voice calm as still water. "Hello, dear?" Silence, then a sigh, not sharp, almost. Tired. "Helen." My name, not Mother, not Mrs. Helen, just Helen. "Ethan says he's coming to you every Sunday, cooking, like nothing happened." I leaned against the railing, tomatoes heavy in the bag. "Nothing did happen, Sophia. Not to him. He's where he belongs." Another pause. I heard ice clinking. Her morning mimosa, probably. "The club ladies keep asking. I told them you're ill. That's why the money disappeared." Her voice cracked on the last word. Ill. The lie sat between us like a third person. I could have been angry. Instead, I felt sad for the woman who needed applause more than truth. "You can tell them whatever helps you sleep," I said gently, "but Ethan and I sleep fine." She laughed, bitter. "You think you're noble, giving everything away. What about me? That apartment was half mine by marriage rights." I closed my eyes. Thomas's coat in the box, the quilt on my bed. "Marriage rights don't claim a widow's peace, Sophia. The lawyer made sure of that." Click, she hung up. No scream this time, just the soft finality of a door closing. Because of that call, I stood on the step longer than I meant to. Mr. Patel watered his buckets, humming. A student jogged past with earbuds and a bounce in her step. Life kept moving. So would I. Then Ethan arrived, arms full, grocery bags, a potted basil plant, a grin that lit the courtyard. "Graham, I brought pasta and that sauce you like. And look," he set the basil on my windowsill. "For your windows, so you can cook with fresh herbs like always." We unpacked together. He told me about his biology lab, how the frog they dissected had a tiny heart, no bigger than a dime, but it kept going. I told him about the market girl, the tomatoes, Sophia's call. He listened, chopping onions with the steady rhythm I'd taught him years ago. "Mom will come around," he said, wiping his eyes. Onions or something else, I couldn't tell. Or she won't. But I'm not waiting anymore. Because of that, we ate at the tiny table I'd pushed against the window. Sunlight striped the bread, the cheese, the 2 plates. Ethan raised his water glass. "To the Autonomy Fund. And to Graham, who showed me love doesn't need a price tag." I clinked my mug against his glass. "To you, my brave boy, who chose his own path." Until finally, as the sky turned lavender, he helped me wash dishes. The basil leaves brushed our wrists, sharp and green. He hugged me goodbye at the door. "Next week, I'm bringing Aisha. She wants to meet the famous tutor." I watched him walk away, backpack bouncing, basil scent lingering. Then I opened my notebook. New page, day 7. Anger visited, sadness answered, love stayed. And now, every Sunday, the cottage fills with voices, Ethan's, Aisha's, sometimes Jamal's or Rosa's dropping by with questions or cookies. The mug hangs ready, the quilt warms my lap. The fund grows, small donations trickling in from students who received and now give. I am not rich in the way Sophia understands, but I am wealthy in the way that matters, free, connected, alive. The basil plant became my daily miracle. Every morning I'd open the window, and its leaves would greet me like green flags of hope. I'd pinch one, crush it between my fingers, and the sharp, sweet scent would fill the tiny cottage, reminding me of the garden Thomas and I once tended in a patch of dirt behind our old house. "Plants don't care about bank accounts," he used to say, kneeling in the soil. "They just need light and a little faith." I whispered the same to my windowsill now, to the students who passed by, to the part of me that still wondered if I'd lost everything. Because of that basil, the children in the courtyard started calling me Miss Herb. Lynn, the 5-year-old with the bouncy pigtails, would knock softly and ask if she could water my plant. Marco, 8 and missing 2 front teeth, offered to sweep my step in exchange for a story. I'd give them small tasks, carry my library books, taste the sauce bubbling on the hot plate, and reward them with apple slices and tales of brave frogs with tiny hearts. Their mothers watched from doorways, nodding with quiet gratitude. The cottage was no longer just a room, it was a heartbeat. Then one rainy Tuesday, Maya from the scholarship office found me at the tutoring table. Her eyes sparkled like she carried a secret too big to hold. "Miss Helen, come see." She led me to a bulletin board now covered edge to edge with thank you notes. One read, "Paid for my little brother's glasses. Now he can read." Rosa, another. bought a bus pass, made it to every class. Aisha, at the bottom, a new plaque. The Autonomy Fund, 20 students and growing. Maya pressed a small envelope into my hand. Inside, a matching grant approval, $20,000 from the Alumni Foundation, inspired by A Grandmother's Quiet Sacrifice. They wanted to name a bench after the fund. I shook my head. Let the money speak, not me. But my hands trembled as I pinned the letter beside the notes. Because of that plaque, I did something I hadn't done since Thomas died. I bought a tiny silver frame with my pension money. I printed the photo Ethan sent, him and Aisha under the jacaranda tree, petals in their hair, laughing like the world was brand new. I hung it beside the basil. A new memory wall, small but fierce. That same week, Ethan arrived with a surprise. Close your eyes, Graham. I heard shuffling, a soft thud. When I looked, a second-hand laptop sat on my table, scratched corners, a rocket sticker on the lid. Engineering club donation, he said. They heard you tutor with just a notebook, said every teacher deserves better. I traced the rocket. I'm retired, remember? You never retired from caring, he said. Because of that laptop, my world expanded. I typed lesson plans, emailed Rosa before her big exam, video called Jamal when he hit a wall with calculus. One night, Lee, the veteran, joined from his night shift. Miss Helen, he said, voice rough, my daughter's daycare is covered because of the fund. I owe you. You owe the next person, I said. That's how it works. He nodded, eyes shining through the screen. Copy that. Then came the Saturday that shifted everything. A knock, firm, familiar. I opened the door to Sophia. No designer armor, just jeans, a plain sweater, hair tied back. She held a brown paper bag. Bread, she said. The seeded kind you used to buy. I stepped aside. She entered, eyes scanning. The basil, the photo, the laptop glowing with an open document. She set the bread down like it might break. Ethan says you eat together every Sunday. I brought cheese too. We sat. The silence wasn't sharp. It was full. I was wrong, she said at last. I thought if I made us look perfect, we'd be perfect. But you, she gestured at the cottage, the fund, the life I'd built from empty pockets. You built something real. I waited. No sermons, just space. I lost the club friends, she went on. They moved on when the story changed, but I kept hearing your voice. Love helps others choose their path. I didn't let Ethan choose. I didn't let you. Because of that bread, we talked until the jacarandas outside turned deep blue, not about forgiveness, about fear, hers, of being ordinary, mine, of being erased, about how status is a mirror that cracks under truth. Until finally, she stood. I'd like to donate. 5,000 from selling things I don't need. She laughed, shaky. Maybe it buys someone a textbook. I nodded. It will. She left the bread, the cheese, and a door cracked open. I didn't hug her, but I didn't close it either. And now the basil grows wild. The fund grows wider. Sophia's money became the first of many quiet gifts. Like rain feeding roots, no one sees. I still tutor, still pinch herbs, still wait for Sunday laughter. But now the cottage holds more than survival. It holds the slow, stubborn bloom of second chances. The seeded bread became my morning sacrament. I toasted the last slice on the 7th day, butter pooling in every crack, and carried it next door to Mrs. Chen. She answered in her slippers, eyes crinkling, and traded me a tiny jar of strawberry jam. No words, just the soft click of 2 doors, learning how to stay open. Because of that jam, I started propping my cottage door every Sunday at 10 sharp. Not a grand gesture, just a 2-inch gap that let basil perfume drift into the courtyard like an unspoken welcome. Ethan arrived first. arms full of folding chairs scavenged from campus surplus. Aisha followed with a tin of cinnamon cookies. Jamal hauled a thermos of dark roast. Rosa balanced her baby on one hip and a tray of warm tamales on the other. The room filled with steam, stories, and the kind of laughter that stitches lonely hearts back together. We ate off paper plates and the single china saucer I'd saved from my wedding set. Lee told about desert nights when the Milky Way looked close enough to touch. Lily and Max, the courtyard kids, sneaked in for apple slices and sat cross-legged on my rug. I passed the world's best Graham mug around for coffee refills. No one asked who paid the grocery bill. They simply gave what they had and took what they needed. Because of those Sundays, the courtyard woke up. Mr. Patel planted a long wooden box down the center walk. Basil, mint, rosemary, watered by whoever strolled past. Mrs. Chen hung paper lanterns that glowed soft gold after dusk. Students tucked folded notes into the soil, paid a classmate's printing fee. Keep it moving. The cottage was the match, the courtyard became the flame. Then one thunder-rattled Thursday, Maya texted, "Office, now. Bring your smile." I arrived to find 40 students shoulder to shoulder, umbrellas dripping on the carpet, eyes shining. On the table, a lopsided chocolate cake iced in purple. The Autonomy Fund, 50 students and still counting. Maya pressed ribbon-tied scissors into my hand. "First cut is yours, Miss Helen. You lit the spark." I looked at the circle of faces. Rosa's baby gurgled. Jamal cradled a brand-new calculator. Aisha leaned into Ethan, fingers laced. Lee stood tall, his little daughter asleep against his shoulder. I sliced the cake, handed the first piece to Ethan. "For the boy who chose courage." He passed it to Aisha. "For the girl who chose partnership." She passed it to Jamal. "For the friend who chose persistence." Around the room it traveled, each person naming one gift received, until the final crumb reached Lily, who took it with jam-sticky fingers and announced, "For Miss Herb, who taught us enough is a feast." Because of that cake, the fund sprouted wings. Students launched autonomy circles, monthly potlucks where recipients taught what they knew. Jamal ran coding workshops. Rosa coached mock interviews. Aisha organized midnight study jams. I sat in the corner with my blue notebook, recording dreams instead of deficits. Then came the cream envelope that stopped my heart. My name in Sophia's careful cursive. Inside, a check for $10,000 and one handwritten line. Sold the watch, the handbag, the heels I never walked in. Let this buy some kid a winter coat or a bus pass, whatever keeps their dreams warm. No signature, just a pressed jacaranda petal, still violet. I tucked the petal between the pages of my notebook, right over the photo of Ethan and Aisha laughing under purple rain. Then I walked the check to Maya. "Anonymous donor," I said. She added it to the ledger without a single question. Because of that petal, I invited Sophia to the next Sunday circle. Not as family, not yet, as a guest. She arrived in a plain cotton dress, hair loose, eyes softer than I'd ever seen. She brought 2 loaves of seeded bread and sat on the rug beside Max, who offered her half an oatmeal cookie. She accepted it like it was spun gold. Ethan watched from the doorway, pride glowing quiet. When the circle broke, he walked her out. "Mom, next week, bring your lasagna recipe. Graham's hot plate is fearless." She laughed, actually laughed, and the sound floated behind her like a promise. Until finally, one ordinary Tuesday, I found a crayon drawing wedged under the basil pot. Purple loops, big block letters. "Dear Miss Herb, I want to be a doctor like Ethan. Thank you for my new sneakers. They help me run to school fast." Lily. I pressed the drawing into my notebook, right on top of Sophia's petal. Layers of giving, folding into something stronger than steel. And now, the courtyard sings. The fund has lifted 72 students and keeps climbing. My cottage is 12 feet by 12, but it holds the whole sky. Every Sunday, the mug circles. Every Thursday, I tutor beneath jacaranda shade. Every night, I sleep under Thomas's quilt, dreaming of dime-sized hearts that refuse to quit. The crayon drawing from Lily became my bookmark. Every time I opened the blue notebook, her purple scrawl smiled up at me. Thank you for my new sneakers. I trace the letters the way I once traced Thomas's handwriting on old grocery lists. Children have a way of turning gratitude into glue. It holds the loose pieces of a life together. Because of that drawing, I started a new page titled Small Mercies. I wrote down every quiet gift, the extra apple. Mr. Patel slipped into my bag. The way Mrs. Chen's paper lanterns glowed like low stars when I walked home late, the sound of Ethan's key in the lock every Sunday at noon sharp. I dated each entry. The list grew longer than I expected. Poverty, I discovered, is loud. Enough is a whisper you have to lean in to hear. Then one crisp October morning, Maya called me to the scholarship office again. This time the room was empty except for a single chair and a projector humming on the table. "Sit," she said, eyes twinkling. The screen lit up with a video, grainy phone footage of the courtyard herb box. Students knelt in the dirt, planting new seedlings. A voiceover, Ethan's, calm and proud. This started with one grandmother who gave everything so others could keep their dreams. Now watch what happens when dreams give back. The video cut to Rosa acing her pharmacy boards, Jamal landing a paid internship, Aisha publishing her first research abstract, then Lily, pigtails flying, running laps in her new sneakers, backpack bouncing. The final frame, a brass plaque on the herb box. The Autonomy Garden, planted in hope, watered by choice. Maya clicked stop. The university wants to dedicate the whole courtyard. Officially, next month. They asked if the founder would speak. She paused. "That's you, Miss Helen." I laughed. Short, surprised. "I'm no speaker. I'm a listener." "You've been speaking with your life," she said. 5 minutes, just 5. Because of that video, I spent the next weeks drafting words on the back of grocery receipts. I practiced in the mirror, voice cracking, then steadying. I asked Ethan to read it aloud. He fixed the parts that sounded like a textbook. I asked Aisha to time it. She shaved off 2 minutes of fluff. I asked Lily to draw the cover for the printed program. She gave me a purple jacaranda tree with sneakers hanging from every branch. The night before the dedication, I couldn't sleep. The quilt felt heavy, the cottage walls closer than usual. I slipped outside at 2 a.m., barefoot on the cool path. The herb box glowed under Mrs. Chen's lanterns. I knelt, pressed my palm to the soil, still warm from the day, still alive. I whispered the speech into the dirt, letting the roots carry it where speeches can't go. Because of that midnight rehearsal, the dedication day arrived softer than I feared. The courtyard filled with folding chairs, purple balloons, faces I knew and faces I didn't. Ethan stood at the podium first, voice steady. "My grandmother taught me that love isn't a bank account. It's a garden. You plant, you water, you trust the sun." He stepped aside. I walked up in my Sunday dress, same one from the bank day, now washed and mended. The microphone squeaked. I didn't flinch. "I gave away a savings book," I began. $80,043. People think that was the sacrifice. It wasn't. The sacrifice was learning to live without the story. I thought money told about me. The real gift was discovering I didn't need the story at all. I told them about the basil, about Lily's sneakers, about Sophia's $10,000 petal pressed in my notebook, about the night I knelt in the dirt and felt the earth say enough. 5 minutes exactly. When I finished, No one clapped right away. They just breathed. One long, shared exhale. Then Lily ran up, hugged my knees, and the applause started like rain on a tin roof. Because of that speech, the invitations poured in. Local Rotary clubs, church groups, a high school ethics class. I said yes to 3. No more. I still had tutoring on Tuesdays, basil to pinch, Ethan's lasagna to taste test. Balance, I learned, is its own kind of wealth. Then one December evening, snow dusting the jacaranda leaves like powdered sugar, Sophia knocked. She carried a foil-covered dish and a nervous smile. "Lasagna," she said, "as promised." I let her in. The cottage smelled of garlic and cinnamon cookies. Ethan looked up from the table, eyes wide, then soft. "Mom, you came." She set the dish down, hands trembling. I practiced the recipe 3 times. Burned the first 2. A small laugh. Figured if I could ruin lasagna, I could survive saying sorry. We ate in silence at first. 3 forks, 1 small table, the mug passing hand to hand. Then Ethan spoke. "Mom, the fund just hit 100 students. Your donation bought winter boots for a kid in Minnesota." Sophia's eyes filled. Good boots matter. Until finally she reached into her coat, pulled out a tiny envelope. Inside, another check, $20,000. "From selling the beach condo," she whispered. "I don't need 2 homes. I need this." She gestured at the table, the basil, the drawing taped to my wall. I took the check, folded it into my notebook beside Lily's sneakers and the jacaranda petal. "Welcome to the garden," I said. "And now, the courtyard is officially the Autonomy Garden. The fund has seeded 3 sister programs at other campuses. My speech lives on a laminated card beside the herb box. Plant hope. Water choice, trust the sun. I still tutor, still toast seeded bread, still wait for Sunday knocks. But now the cottage door stays open wider, and the world walks in wearing sneakers that run toward tomorrow." The laminated speech card became my compass. I tucked a copy into the blue notebook, another into the pocket of my Sunday coat, and one under the basil pot where morning dew kept it curled like a secret. Whenever doubt whispered, "You're 65, Helen," with 1 hot plate and a pension stub, I touched the card. Plant hope. Water choice. Trust the sun. The words weren't mine anymore. They belonged to everyone who walked past the herb box and paused to read. Because of that card, the invitations kept arriving. A women's shelter asked me to speak at their holiday brunch. A community college wanted a workshop on legacy without inheritance. I said yes to the shelter, no to the college. My knees still ached on long bus rides. At the shelter, 20 mothers sat on folding chairs, babies on laps, eyes wary until I told them about the night I emptied my savings book. "I thought I was losing security," I said. "Turns out I was trading chains for wings." A young woman in the back row, scarf tight, knuckles bruised, stood up after. "I'm leaving him next week," she whispered. "Your fund paid my bus ticket." I hugged her like she was Ethan. Wings, indeed. Then one January afternoon, snow turning to slush underfoot, Ethan burst through the cottage door without knocking. "Graham, turn on the laptop." His cheeks were red from running. The screen loaded a university news page, headline in bold. "Autonomy Fund hits $500,000 milestone. Matching grant from National Education Trust." Below, a photo of the courtyard garden, plaque gleaming, Lily's purple sneakers mid-stride in the foreground. I stared until the words blurred. $500,000. Not from my empty account, from ripples that had crossed states, oceans, hearts. Ethan scrolled to the donor list. Names I didn't know. Corporations, a high school class that held a bake sale, Sophia's $20,000 lasagna check listed simply as anonymous in honor of second chances. Because of that headline, the courtyard threw an impromptu party. Students strung Christmas lights through the jacaranda, bare branches sparkling like frozen fireworks. Mr. Patel fired up a borrowed grill. Hot dogs sizzled beside Rosa's tamales. Mrs. Chen passed paper cups of hot cocoa. Someone plugged a speaker into Ethan's phone. Old jazz filled the air, the kind Thomas used to hum while washing dishes. I stood in the middle, coat unbuttoned, snowflakes melting on my lashes, and realized I was crying without sound. Lily tugged my sleeve. "Miss Herb, dance!" She spun in her sneakers, arms wide. I took her hands. We twirled, slow, clumsy, perfect, until Ethan cut in, then Aisha, then Jamal. The circle widened. Even Sophia arrived late, cheeks flushed, carrying a bakery box of seeded rolls. She hesitated at the edge, then stepped in when Lee offered his arm. "Ma'am," he said, "veterans know a good leader when they see one." She laughed, free, surprised, and let him lead her in a two-step across the slush. Because of that dance, the university president called the next day. "Mrs. Helen, we'd like to name the new scholarship dorm after the fund. Autonomy Hall, groundbreaking in spring. Will you turn the first shovel?" I sat on my narrow bed, phone to ear, basil leaves, brushing my cheek through the open window. "Only if the students do the shoveling," I said. "I'm better at planting than digging these days." She laughed and agreed. Then came the letter that stopped time. Thick envelope, return address from the state capitol. Inside, an invitation on heavy creamstock. Governor's Award for Community Impact, Lifetime Achievement. My name in gold foil, ceremony in March. Black tie, optional. I showed Ethan. He whooped, spun me until the cottage tilted. Sophia, visiting for Sunday lasagna, read it twice. "Helen," she said, voice soft, "they want to put you on a stage with politicians." She paused. "I'll lend you my pearls if you want." I touched her hand. "I'll wear Thomas's old tie clip. It's enough." Because of that invitation, the weeks blurred. Taylor measured me for a simple navy dress. Pension money well spent. Lily practiced her curtsy for the reception. Ethan wrote a speech for me to veto. I wrote my own on index cards. The night before the ceremony, I couldn't sleep. I walked to the garden at midnight, snow crunching. The plaque glowed under lantern light. I traced the letters, planted in hope, watered by choice. I added a new line in my head, harvested in love. Until finally, the day arrived. The Capitol Rotunda echoed with heels and camera shutters. I walked the marble aisle in my navy dress, Thomas's tie clip catching the chandeliers. Ethan and Aisha sat front row, Sophia beside them in quiet gray, pearls gleaming, but not borrowed. The governor spoke of ordinary heroes who rewrite the possible. Then she called my name. I stepped to the podium. The microphone was too tall. A staffer lowered it with a smile. I looked out. Hundreds of faces, but I saw only the courtyard. Lily waving, Rosa bouncing her baby, Lee standing tall. "I'm just a grandmother," I began, "who learned that empty pockets can still hold the world if you fill them with the right things." I told them about the basil, about Sophia's lasagna, about the night I danced in snow with a 5-year-old who taught me joy has no price tag. 3 minutes. No more. When I finished, the applause rose like a wave. The governor pinned a medal on my dress. Heavy, cold, real. And now, Autonomy Hall rises brick by brick on the edge of campus. The fund crossed $1 million last month. My cottage door stays open from dawn to dusk. Every Sunday, the table groans under tamales, lasagna, and seeded bread. Every night, I touch the medal on my shelf. Then the basil leaf. Then Lily's drawing. The story keeps growing, and I keep planting. One hope, one choice, one sunlit day at a time. The medal sat on my shelf between the basil pot and Lily's crayon drawing, catching the morning light like a quiet wink. I never polished it. Dust gathered in the grooves, and that felt right. Honors, like people, are better when they're lived in. I still wore Thomas's tie clip every Sunday. The medal was for looking, not wearing. Because of that medal, the courtyard garden became a pilgrimage site. Busloads of school kids arrived on field trips, sneakers squeaking across the path. Teachers asked me to tell the story in 10 minutes or less. I learned to boil it down. One empty savings book, one brave grandson, one garden that keeps giving. The kids' eyes widened at empty, softened at brave, and lit up at garden. They left with basil seedlings in paper cups and a new word in their notebooks: autonomy. Then, one February morning, frost silvering the jacaranda leaves, Ethan knocked with news that tilted the cottage on its axis. "Graham, sit down." He held a thick envelope sealed with the university crest. Inside, a letter on heavy stock. Autonomy Hall naming ceremony. Keynote speaker, Mrs. Helen Thomas. Below, a smaller card. Honorary Doctorate of Humane Letters, to be conferred at spring commencement. I read it 3 times. Doctor, me, the widow who never finished her own master's degree because Thomas got sick and the bills piled high. Ethan grinned so wide, I saw the little boy who lost his first tooth in my kitchen. "They want to put a robe on you, Graham, and a funny hat." I laughed until my ribs hurt. "I'll trip on the robe." Sophia, stirring sauce on the hot plate, turned with wooden spoon mid-air. "You'll wear it like you wore that navy dress. Like you wear everything. Perfectly." Her eyes shone with something softer than pride. Atonement, maybe, or just love catching up. Because of that letter, the weeks turned into dress rehearsals. The university sent a student stylist, bright-eyed, nervous, to measure me for the doctoral gown. Black velvet trim, purple hood, lined in white. "For education," she explained. I ran my fingers over the fabric. It felt like the night sky Thomas and I once drove hours to see, away from city lights. "We'll shorten the hem," I said. "I'm not tall." She smiled and pinned. Lily insisted on practicing the graduation march. She lined up her stuffed animals on the courtyard path and played a tin whistle off-key while Max banged a pot with a spoon. I walked the gauntlet in my slippers, arms out for balance. The kids cheered. Mr. Patel filmed it on his phone. "For the blooper reel," he said. Then came the night I almost said no. The ceremony was 3 days away. I woke at 3 a.m., heart racing. The cottage felt too small for the size of the stage. I slipped outside, metal cold in my pocket, and sat on the garden bench, the one funded by Sophia's beach condo sale. Snow had melted into mud. Crocuses pushed through like purple fists. I whispered to the dark, "Thomas, I'm scared. I'll forget the words. Or worse, that they'll think I'm someone I'm not." A light flicked on. Mrs. Chen's door. She shuffled out in her robe, carrying 2 mugs. "Chamomile, no sugar." She sat beside me without asking. "My husband was honored once," she said. "Factory award. He practiced until he cried. Then he remembered, the honor isn't the speech. It's the life that earned it." She pressed a mug into my hands. "Drink, then sleep. The garden will hold your words." Because of that tea, I slept. And the day arrived, soft as forgiveness. The auditorium swelled with purple gowns and proud families. I walked the stage in borrowed heels, Sophia's, 1 size too big, stuffed with tissue at the toe. Ethan escorted me, arm steady. Aisha carried the hood. Lily, in a tiny purple dress, held my index cards like a ring bearer. The president spoke of transformative generosity. Then she called my name. The robe swished like wings. I stepped to the podium, looked out at a sea of faces and saw only the courtyard. Rosa wiping baby spit, Jamal adjusting his glasses, Lee standing tall, Sophia in the third row clutching a tissue, but smiling. I didn't use the cards. "I'm here," I began, "because a boy chose a scholarship over a showroom, because a woman sold a condo to buy strangers' boots, because a 5-year-old taught me sneakers can carry dreams. I'm not a doctor of books. I'm a doctor of enough. Prescribed one basil leaf, one Sunday lasagna, one brave yes at a time." The auditorium inhaled, then exhaled in applause that rattled the rafters. The hood slipped over my shoulders. Heavy, warm, mine. The president pinned the medal's twin to my gown. Cameras flashed. Lily waved from the front row like the queen. Because of that hood, Autonomy Hall opened its doors that fall. I cut the ribbon with garden shears, same ones I used to trim basil. Students moved in with duffels and dreams. The lobby plaque read, "In honor of Helen Thomas, Doctor of Enough." Underneath, smaller letters, "May these walls hold choice, not chains." Until finally, 1 year later, I stood in the courtyard at dawn. The jacarandas bloomed fierce purple. Lily, now 6, led a line of kindergartners planting new basil. Ethan and Aisha, engaged now, handed out paper cups. Sophia arrived with seeded bread and a new recipe, rosemary focaccia. Mrs. Chen hung fresh lanterns. The fund crossed 2 million. My cottage door stayed open. The medal gathered dust. The garden grew. And now, every commencement, a new doctor of enough walks the stage. Sometimes me, sometimes a student who once received a bus pass. The robe fits differently on each body, but the message is the same. We plant, we water, we trust. The story isn't mine anymore. It's ours, and it keeps blooming. One purple petal, one brave choice, one sunrise at a time. The robe hung in my closet now, folded in tissue like a sleeping bird. I took it out only once a year, commencement day, then returned it to the dark, where velvet dreams don't fade. The purple hood became Lily's dress-up cape. She wore it while watering the garden, trailing behind her like a royal train. "Dr. Lily," she announced to the basil, prescribing sunshine. The plants grew taller for her. Because of that robe, the courtyard garden earned a new name from the children, Dr. Helen's magic dirt. They believed anything planted there, seed, wish, or worry, would sprout stronger. Mr. Patel tested the theory with carrot tops. They feathered green within a week. Mrs. Chen buried a photo of her late husband under the rosemary. The bush doubled in size. I buried nothing. I simply knelt every morning, fingers in soil, and listened to the earth breathe. Then one humid July evening, thunder rumbling like a distant drum, Ethan arrived with a folder thicker than his old biology textbook. "Graham, close the door." Rare words. I obeyed. He spread papers across the table, architectural drawings, budget sheets, a letter sealed with the university president's wax stamp. Proposal: the Helen Thomas Autonomy Village, a national model for student support. I traced the sketches. Not just a dorm, a cluster of cottages around a central garden. Mine the prototype. Each unit, one room, one hot plate, one window facing herbs. Communal kitchen, laundry, tutoring lounge, solar panels on every roof. A fund office in the middle. Projected capacity, 200 students per year, all on partial life expense grants. Cost, $20 million. Already pledged, 8. Ethan's eyes burned. They want you to break ground in September, with the governor, and a shovel, not shears this time. I laughed, short, shaky. I'm 70 now, Ethan. My shoveling days ended with Thomas's tomatoes. He slid a single page across. My name in bold. Founding resident and story keeper. A cottage reserved for me. Larger window, wider door, basil sill pre-installed. Salary, whatever the fund could spare. Title: Whatever I Wanted. Because of that page, I walked the garden at midnight again. Lightning stitched the sky. Jacarandas glowed ghost purple. I sat on the bench, worn smooth by countless backsides, and felt the weight of 70 years settle, gentle, not heavy. Thomas's voice drifted in with the thunder. "Grow where you're planted, Helen." I pressed my palm to the soil, still warm, still listening. The next morning, I called a courtyard meeting, folding chairs in a circle, coffee in the world's best Graham mug passed hand to hand. I told them the plan. Silence. Then Rosa stood, baby on hip. "We'll build the kitchen first. I know a contractor who owes me." Jamal raised his hand. "I'll design the solar grid. Final project credit." Aisha grinned. "I'll fundraise. Wedding money can wait." Sophia, visiting with focaccia, simply nodded. "I'll sell the yacht. It's been docked too long." Lily tugged my sleeve. "Will there be a swing?" I knelt. "The biggest one." Because of that meeting, the village rose faster than blueprints predicted. Students poured concrete on weekends. Mr. Patel donated bamboo for privacy screens. Mrs. Chen sewed curtains from donated fabric. Sophia's yacht sale covered the foundation. My cottage became the model. Hot plate humming, basil thriving, robe hanging in the closet like a quiet flag. Groundbreaking day arrived, with blue skies and a brass band. The governor handed me a silver shovel. Cameras flashed. I dug one scoop, soft earth, easy give, then passed the shovel to Lily. "Your turn, doctor." She dug with both hands, dirt flying into her pigtails. The crowd cheered louder for her than for me. Because of that shovel, the first cottages opened by winter. Students moved in with duffels and secondhand lamps. The central garden bloomed year-round, kale in snow, tomatoes in July. I moved into the Storykeeper cottage. 2 rooms now, a real stove, a porch swing facing the herbs. The old cottage stayed empty one night, then filled with a freshman from across the state who'd never seen basil grow indoors. She watered it like it was gold. Then one spring evening, sunset painting the village purple, Ethan and Aisha knocked. Wedding rings glinted new on their fingers. "Graham," Ethan said, "we have a favor." They led me to the communal kitchen, long table set for 20, lasagna bubbling, seeded bread steaming. At the head, a chair with a plaque. "Storykeeper's seat, reserved for Helen." I sat. They served. Lily, 7 now, stood on a stool to toast with apple juice. "To Dr. Graham, who taught us love is a garden you never stop weeding." Sophia raised her glass last. "And to the woman who showed me, weeds can become flowers if you give them room." Until finally, one quiet autumn, the village hosted its first national conference. Experts flew in to study the model. I gave the keynote from the porch swing. 5 minutes, no notes. "Autonomy isn't a building," I said. "It's a choice repeated every morning when you water what matters." And now, the village spans 3 states. My porch swing creaks under new backsides every week. The fund crossed 10 million. Lily starts medical school next fall. Full ride, plus basil money. I still pinch herbs at dawn, still pass the mug on Sundays, still touch the soil and feel Thomas smile. The robe gathers dust. The garden gathers people. The story gathers roots deeper than any shovel can reach. The porch swing became my throne, creaking softly under the weight of mornings spent with coffee, and a view of the Autonomy Village garden. Basil and rosemary spilled over the edges of raised beds, tended by students who left notes in the soil. Textbook paid. Thank you. I'd sip from the world's best Graham mug, now chipped but still passing hand to hand, and watch Lily, now 8, teach freshmen how to pinch herbs without bruising them. "Gentle," she'd say, "like Dr. Graham's hands." Because of that swing, I started a new ritual, Storytelling hour every Friday dusk. Students gathered on blankets, some with babies, some with laptops, all with eyes hungry for something bigger than lecture notes. I told them about the savings book I'd emptied, the night I knelt in the dirt under jacaranda light, the way Sophia's lasagna smelled like redemption. They listened, then shared their own stories. Parents who sold cars for tuition, siblings who mailed dollar bills from minimum wage jobs, dreams that bloomed despite drought. The garden held every word like it held the basil, fierce, alive, rooted. Then one crisp March afternoon, a news van pulled into the village. A reporter in a sharp blazer, microphone clipped, asked to interview the doctor of enough. I wore my Sunday dress, Thomas's tie clip pinned to the collar, and sat on the swing. She asked about the fund, now at $15 million, and the village, now a blueprint for 10 campuses nationwide. "What's the secret?" she said, pen poised. I smiled. "No secret, just a choice. Keep what you need, give what you can, trust the rest to grow." She scribbled fast, then pointed to the garden. "Can we film there, with you and the kids?" Lily and Max raced over, dirt smudged on their cheeks, holding basil pots like trophies. The camera rolled. I didn't speak. The children did, about sneakers, backpacks, dreams of being doctors or pilots or poets. The reporter's eyes softened. "This is bigger than money," she said off mic. I nodded. She got it. Because of that interview, the story went national. Clips aired on evening news, shared on social media, emailed by proud students to faraway parents. Donations poured in. $5 from a barista in Ohio, $50,000 from a tech CEO who'd once needed a bus pass. The village office couldn't keep up. Maya hired 2 assistants to sort checks and thank you letters. One arrived in Sophia's handwriting. Another $50,000. Sold the vacation house. Plant more basil. I tucked her note into my notebook beside Lily's drawing and the jacaranda petal, now brittle but still purple. The layers felt like a book I hadn't meant to write but couldn't stop reading. Because of that broadcast, the governor returned. Not for a ceremony, for a tour. She walked the village in flats, no entourage, just a notebook of her own. She sat in the communal kitchen, ate Rosa's tamales, listened to Jamal explain solar panels. In the tutoring lounge, she watched me help a freshman rewrite a history essay. "Mrs. Helen," she said, "you've built a nation of gardens." She invited me to advise a state task force on student support. I said yes, but only if I could Zoom from the swing. She laughed and agreed. Then came the Sunday I didn't expect. Sophia arrived early, before Ethan and Aisha, before the lasagna bubbled or the mug circled. She carried a small wooden box, cedar, like Thomas's old coat closet. "Open it," she said, voice low. Inside, a stack of letters, yellowed, tied with twine. My son's handwriting. Ethan's father, gone 5 years now. Notes he'd written to Sophia during their first years, full of love and promises. At the bottom, one letter addressed to me. "Mom, you taught me to give without counting the cost." I forgot that for a while. Sorry. I'm trying again through Ethan. I closed the box. My throat burned. Sophia touched my arm. I found them packing up the house. I thought, "You should have them." I nodded. "Thank you." No more words, just the weight of a son returned through paper and time. Because of that box, I invited Sophia to stay for the storytelling hour. She sat on a blanket, knees tucked, listening as Lily told about her dream to cure cancer, like Ethan will. When it was Sophia's turn, she hesitated, then spoke. "I used to think love was a spotlight. I was wrong. It's a seed. You bury it, and it surprises you." The students clapped, not polite, but real. Until finally, one summer evening, the village held its first autonomy festival. Lanterns swung from every cottage, students grilled burgers, danced to Aisha's playlist, painted murals on the tutoring lounge walls. I sat on the swing, watching. Ethan and Aisha swayed under the jacarandas, rings glinting. Rosa's baby toddled after Lily, who wore the purple hood like a superhero cape. Sophia helped Mr. Patel flip burgers, her laugh softer than I'd ever heard. I opened my notebook. New page. Day 1095. Regret visited. Redemption answered. I taped the cedar box's twine beside the pedal, the drawing, the laminated speech. And now, the village is a constellation. 12 campuses, 20 million in the fund. Countless basil pots on countless sills. I still tutor, still swing, still pass the mug. Sophia brings focaccia every Sunday, stays for stories. The garden grows. The stories multiply. Love, I've learned, is the only currency that spends itself and never runs dry. The cedar box stayed on my shelf now, lid open so the letters could breathe. Every Sunday before storytelling hour, I'd lift one out at random, my son's handwriting faded but steady, and read a line aloud to the circle. Love isn't loud, Mom. It's the quiet yes you give when no one's watching. The students leaned in, hungry for the kind of love that doesn't demand a stage. Lily, 9 and missing her front teeth, started a tradition. After each letter, she'd plant a new herb seed in the communal bed. For the quiet yes, she'd say, patting the soil like a promise. Because of those letters, the village birthed a new program, Legacy Letters. Students wrote to their future selves, sealed them in cedar boxes of their own, and buried them under the garden's newest bed. 1 year later, on the anniversary of their move-in, they dug them up. Some cried, some laughed. All grew. Jamal's letter predicted he'd invent a solar app. He did. Rosa's vowed she'd open a pharmacy for the uninsured. She broke ground last spring. The garden became a time capsule, roots tangled with hope. Then one golden September morning, a sleek black car rolled into the village. Too quiet for tires, too shiny for dust. Out stepped a woman in a navy suit, hair silver at the temples, eyes sharp but kind. She carried a leather portfolio and asked for Dr. Helen. I met her on the swing, coffee in the chipped mug. "I'm from the National Endowment for Education," she said. "We've tracked your model for 5 years. It works. We want to scale it. 50 villages, coast to coast, federal seed money, 100 million. I set the mug down. The swing creaked to a stop. 100 million. Enough to house every student who ever chose a scholarship over a showroom. Enough to plant basil in every state. I looked past her to the garden. Lily teaching a toddler to water. Ethan and Aisha pushing their new baby in a stroller made from recycled dorm wood. Sophia arranging focaccia on the communal table like it was her kitchen. "What's the catch?" I asked. She smiled. "You stay story keeper. No boardrooms, no relocation. Just your voice, your swing, your rules." Because of that offer, I called another courtyard circle. That night, lanterns glowing, lasagna cooling. I told them the number. Silence. Then Max, 10 now, voice cracking, stood. "We vote, but only if Dr. Graham keeps the swing." Hand shot up. Unanimous. Sophia's was first. The next month, contracts arrived. I signed with Thomas's old fountain pen, ink bleeding slightly like it remembered his hand. The endowment wired the first tranche. Construction crews broke ground on Village 2 in Oregon, Village 3 in Georgia. Students from the original garden trained the new ones via video. How to build raised beds, how to pass the mug, how to bury a letter and trust the dirt. Because of those contracts, the village hosted its first National Autonomy Day. 50 villages linked by live stream. I spoke from the swing. 3 minutes, no notes. We started with one empty savings book and one brave grandson. Now we have 50 gardens and 50,000 brave choices. Keep planting, keep watering, keep trusting. The feed showed simultaneous cheers. Oregon rain, Georgia sun, California fog. Lily led a global toast with apple juice in paper cups. The internet crashed the server with shares. Then came the evening that folded time. Sophia knocked after dusk, eyes red but clear. She carried the cedar box, empty now, letters read and returned to the garden soil. "I have one more," she said. She handed me a fresh envelope, my name in her newer, softer script. Inside, a deed. The original apartment, my old home, the one I donated, repurchased, renovated, turned into a family suite for village elders. Below, a note. "For you, Helen, when the swing gets too creaky, or when you just want your old window back. Love, Sophia." I traced the address. Same lace curtains I'd sewn, same chamomile scent, probably. I looked at her, really looked. The woman who once demanded my life savings now offered me a home. I hugged her. First time, she stiffened, then melted. "I kept the hot plate," she whispered, "for Sunday lasagna." Because of that deed, I moved back for one night a month. The apartment smelled of paint and possibility. I slept under the same ceiling where the story began, woke to the same sun through the same window. Then I returned to the swing, the garden, the village, my real home now, wider than any walls. Until finally, one winter solstice, the longest night, the village gathered under lantern light. Snow dusted the basil beds. We covered them with blankets like sleeping children. Ethan and Aisha announced their second baby. Rosa cut the ribbon on her pharmacy. Lily, 10, tall, fierce, unveiled a mural on the tutoring lounge. Me on the swing, Thomas beside me, Sophia passing bread. Every face from every village woven into the leaves. I opened my notebook. Final page. Day 1825. Fear visited once. Love stayed forever. I taped the apartment deed beside the cedar twine, the jacaranda petal, Lily's first drawing. The book closed, heavy, full, finished. And now, the village's number 75. The fund crossed 50 million. I still swing at dawn, still tutor on Tuesdays, still pass the mug on Sundays. Sophia brings focaccia and stays for stories. Lily starts pre-med next fall. The basil grows year-round. The letters keep blooming. And every night, wherever I sleep, cottage, apartment, or under jacaranda stars, I touch the soil and feel the quiet yes that started it all. The basil never stops growing. On the longest night of the year, when snow blankets the village gardens and the jacarandas sleep bare, I still find green shoots pushing through the frost. I wrap my hands around the world's best graham mug, warm now from decades of passing, and watch the steam curl like the first breath of a new story. 75 villages, $50 million, countless hearts learning that love is not a vault to guard but a seed to scatter. I am 80 now, hair silver as moonlight, knees creaky as the old swing. But the garden keeps me young. Lily, 20, pre-med, eyes bright as her first crayon drawing, waters the beds with the same gentle hands. Ethan and Aisha push their toddlers in swings built from recycled dorm wood. Sophia, softer every year, brings rosemary focaccia and sits beside me, shoulder to shoulder, no words needed. Rosa's pharmacy dispenses hope alongside pills. Jamal's solar app powers half the villages. The cedar box letters have become books, published, dog-eared, passed from dorm to dorm like sacred texts. The apartment I once emptied stands renewed, its window still framing the same slice of sky. I sleep there one night a month, under the quilt Thomas pieced from his old shirts, and wake to the scent of chamomile that never left the walls. The savings book, long blank, rests on the shelf beside the metal. The robe, The purple hood Lily wore as a cape. Symbols, not shackles. Reminders that enough is a country with no borders. I close my eyes and see it all. The day Sophia burst in demanding everything. The night I knelt in the dark and chose freedom. The first basil leaf pinched between trembling fingers. The dance in the snow with a 5-year-old who taught me joy has no price. I see the ripple. $80,000 becoming 80,000 lives. One brave choice becoming a nation of gardens. The pain is still there, quiet now, like a scar that aches before rain. The loneliness that once gnawed my bones has turned to solitude, rich and chosen. The fear of being forgotten? Laughable. Every basil leaf carries my name. Every letter buried in the soil whispers it back. And the lesson, gentle, fierce, timeless, blooms in every village, every heart. True wealth is not what you keep, but what you free yourself from. Love measured in dollars rots. Love measured in choice grows forever. So here we are, at the end that is only another beginning. The swing still creaks. The mug still passes. The garden still teaches. Plant hope. Water choice. Trust the sun. If this story stirred something in you, if you've ever felt the weight of sacrifice, the sting of being unseen, the quiet fire of choosing dignity, then carry a seed. Plant it where you stand. Water it with one brave yes. Watch it grow beyond you. Share this with the grandmother who taught you strength. Send it to the child who needs to know love isn't a price tag. Leave a comment below. I planted my seed today, or simply close your eyes, touch the earth, real or remembered, and whisper enough. The garden is waiting. The story is yours now.